Tēnā tātou.
David Seymour.
Mr Speaker, one of the benefits of being a younger member of the House is that sometimes you can learn a thing or two from some of the older members of the House. And from what may be the oldest of all, we got three very good questions. What state is the country in? Well, it's an interesting fact, Mr Speaker, that if you look at the polling data across the world and you look at Canada, the United Kingdom, the United States and Australia, and you ask the people of each country, is New Zealand or is your country heading in the right direction or the wrong direction? New Zealand is the only one of the five where people persistently have said the country is heading in the right direction for the last 6 years straight. So when the member asks the question, are we heading in the right direction, the people have answered the question. Maybe he thinks they're stupid. What he'll find out if he stands in Northland is that the people there have moved on too. That place has changed since the 1960s, and if he stands there, it will be a very sad political death. However, I've heard that he may be leaving me a couple of backbenchers in as well, so it may not be all bad. Are we getting towards a fairer society? That's a question that I'd like to address in this speech, Mr Speaker, but the country is in a good state and we are heading in the right direction. I learnt this on the 175th anniversary of our nation's founding up at Waitangi just last week, and I probably speak for many New Zealanders when I say that I had stayed away all of my life because of the acrimonious pictures on the TV screen that put me off visiting Waitangi on the 5th and 6th of February. And what a warm and pleasant experience. I had to say a prayer on a marae, almost 2 new experiences in one day. And what I found when I watched the TV at the end of that day was something astonishing and surprising. You see, I thought Andrew Little had wanted to be the Prime Minister of New Zealand. I really did. All his behaviour up until that point had suggested that Andrew Little wanted to be the Prime Minister of New Zealand. Now, we heard from the leader of the Green Party that he knew which side he was on of apartheid in 1981, but does Andrew Little know the answer to that question, or is he actually trying to bring it back right here in New Zealand? Perhaps he agrees with Sir Tipperary O'Regan, the normally sensible and respectable man who said that Pākehā New Zealanders don't know their history. Well, let me remind Andrew Little and anyone else that has any doubt what some of our history is. Perhaps we should start maybe about 400 years ago when Martin Luther challenged the Inquisition and nailed his theses to the door of Rome. Perhaps we should talk about William Wilberforce, who campaigned valiantly for years to end slavery in England, or Abe Lincoln, who did it across the Atlantic in the US. Perhaps we should talk about Kate Shepherd, who said that women and men should both be able to vote equally here in New Zealand. Or perhaps we could come forward a little way to Fran Wilde and Louisa Wall, who said that people should be treated equally before the law, regardless of their sexuality. Our heritage and our history is the creation of a free and equal society where everybody is equal under law, and that is one of the greatest achievements any country has ever made. If Andrew Little really wants to be Prime Minister of New Zealand, he better backpedal quickly on the idea that we should be backing down on the wonderful achievements that our country has managed in becoming one of the most diverse, free and harmonious societies that this world has ever seen. When we come to the question of housing affordability, it's worth thinking how far we have come on that topic. The Demographia Index has been comparing median household incomes to median house prices every year for 6 years, and when they started doing 8 years, when they started doing it, Helen Clark used to say if only they'd put some unaffordable European countries in, New Zealand's housing affordability might look a little bit better. Well, how far we've come that we now have a government that accepts that there is a housing affordability problem in New Zealand. We have a government that is actually addressing the root causes of housing unaffordability in New Zealand. And what are those causes? If you study the phenomena, it is not the tax system. Sydney, Vancouver, Los Angeles have much more unaffordable housing than us, and they also have a capital gains tax. It is not the banking system or the interest rates. We have many markets across the United States and Canada. They all have the same banking system. They all have the same interest rate, but only some markets are deeply unaffordable. No, we now have studies of hundreds of urban housing markets approach to urban planning, and what do we discover? It is those that take on constrictive urban planning regimes who say thou shalt not build there, that find themselves with a shortage of land on which you can build and as a result a shortage of houses. It doesn't matter, as the Labour Party would have it, if the government builds the houses, because even builders working for the government cannot build houses on no land. The initiative that this government will take up, cleaning up the RMA, taking out the vagaries and making the RMA about science. Science, Mr. Speaker, physics, chemistry and biology. The RMA should be about biodiversity. It should be about air, water and soil. It should be about the physics of noise, of traffic, of shading. But it should not be about vague concepts that lead to ephemeral goals pursued by urban planners, denying an entire generation of New Zealanders the opportunity to own a home. How far we've come, Mr. Speaker, that we are now reforming the root cause of housing unaffordability, and I give the support of the ACT Party to National in reforming the RMA at its root in sections 5, 6 and 7 and focusing them on science rather than the kind of ephemera that we hear from the other side of the House. Because the first step towards building more houses is to free up land upon which to build them. Another thing that happened over the last couple of months, and which I'd like to add to the Prime Minister's address, is that a number of partnership schools have opened. And I've got bad news for the opposition. Boy, are they performing off the charts. The numbers of students enrolled are going through the roof, 440 up from 360 last year. The PPTA are terrified of the ongoing success of these schools. Vanguard Military School, 96 and 100% pass rates in level 1 and 2. The member there should go and visit and see what it does for the kids who choose to attend the school. But her ideology is more important than those kids getting skills, getting qualifications, getting jobs and feeling good about themselves. And that's why she's going to be staying over there. Or you could visit any of the other schools where the results are outstanding, in particular for the context and some of the challenges that they face. And the next month we're going to see Sir Michael Jones, we're going to see Willie Jackson opening partnership schools. This policy has momentum, it is diverse, it is unstoppable. And you wonder why the Labour Party are in so much trouble in this House. It's because the ACT Party is now doing their job for them. We are delivering what Peter Fraser promised as Education Minister in 1949. I know it's hard, Tracy Martin, but you need to accept this. If you really care about... If you really care...
Order.
I beg your pardon, Mr. Speaker. If the member really cares, I know that he does, if the member really cares about delivering the promise that every child will be developed to the full extent of their powers by our education system, then we must be able to let in new methods. And I actually agree with one of the things that Eleanor Catton said. She said that when you have success, too many people are there to beat up on you unless they can collectivise it for themselves. Imagine a world in which the approach of the teacher unions, in which the approach of the opposition, in which the approach of even Tracy Martin was such that we admired people who have taken risks, gone out on a limb, been creative, enrolled their kids in order to find ways to address one of New Zealand's most urgent problems. Wouldn't it be nice to live in a country where Eleanor Catton's concern of tall poppy syndrome was addressed, and we could actually try new things to make kids' lives better without such negative wailing from all over the chamber. But unfortunately we fight on, and I'm very proud to do so with my colleagues from the Māori Party, from United Future and from the National Party. We are going to deal to the RMA, because when you see that child poverty rises from 130,000 to 285,000 as soon as you include the figures for housing affordability or the effect that has on family budgets, then you know the number one thing we can do for child poverty is actually expand the supply of housing for New Zealand families, and haven't we come a long way in addressing that? And we know that we are coming into a world and a century where the premium on skills will be larger than it has been at any previous time, and it's going to be more important than ever that all New Zealanders have the skills, and we are unleashing social entrepreneurship in order to achieve that goal. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Peter Dunn.
Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to support a large proportion of what is